Hi, everyone. I am Kathy Inglot. Welcome to the Top Lessons podcast today. I have a special guest with me today. She's a kick-ass woman, an accomplished professional, co-founder of the Well Network, and the principal of BWE Consultancy. She's a seasoned CPG strategist and a former Unilever executive. Brooke has spent her career guiding food, beverage, and wellness brands from early stage to scale up, while also working with CEOs of Fortune 500 companies on innovation, brand growth, and organizational strategy. Now, to say the least, Brooke is accomplished, but she was recently named to the Women for 50 Women to Watch for Boards, the list by which 50/50 Women on Boards produces. Brooke brings board-level perspective and a deep understanding of how to connect insight with impact. At the Well Network, she channels the same expertise to foster meaningful, ROI-driven connections between investors, founders, and operators while shaping the future of CPG and the wellness industries. Welcome to the show, Brooke Effron.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Now, I know your professional resume is insanely great. You are a woman that I inspire others want to be like, and a woman who is leading the way for other women to also be accomplished in the same way that you have reached your accomplishments in developing and co-founding the Well Network. Now, I know I said a lot about you, but I want you to tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how your career has transformed from the traditional Unilever to now owning your own business and the lessons that you've learned through the process.
Well, Kathy, it's been a long journey. Um, I actually started after graduating Princeton in advertising. I was in account management at Young and Rubicam, where I had clients ranging from Kraft Foods to the United States Postal Service and AT&T. At the time, it was great, and I got a view of what it was like to be on the client side of the business. At which point, I made a conscious decision to go back to business school in order to earn my MBA and become a client. And that's what I did. After graduating Wharton, I joined what later became Unilever in the foods business, where I either launched or ran almost all of their international food products. I was there for many years, and when it came time for me to start a family, I was able to take advantage of a severance package. Through all the transition, previous company was bought by Unilever 2 years prior. And while I was promoted and got great positions, etc., I was not compensated with stock. So technically, I was not compensated the same. So I was able to take a voluntary severance. And on the very last day that I could opt for that, I went into my VP's office and said, I'm taking the severance. Of course, he was shocked. He's like, wait, you're doing so well here. Why wouldn't you stay? And I had to explain to him that I was 5 months pregnant, and with maternity leave and my severance package, I was going to be paid for a year to start my family. And unfortunately, there was nothing he could offer me at the time that would suffice in my changing my mind. From there, I did start my family, and literally a year to the day when my severance was ending, a colleague of mine from Wharton Business School was working at Dannon and asked me, do you want to take a maternity leave fill in for the Light and Fit smoothie and yogurt business? I said, that sounds wonderful. And all of a sudden, that launched a new trajectory for me. As I was trying to see how I could balance a career and motherhood and other obligations, I found being my own boss and being able to take assignments as I wanted and that were of interest and where I had some flexibility really was having it all. And I was soon able to transition maternity leave fill-ins to actual management consulting work and continue to get clients, mostly Fortune 500 food and beverage clients, but cross industry, and build my career. And that's what I've been doing for the last 20 plus years.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think, the story and the journey that you described is one that has obviously gotten you to today, which is by no means less than. However, you had this point in your career that I think most, men don't have, where you had a choice to make, right? Family over career. And I hope the times have changed. And I know in many cases they have, but in some cases they're still very lacking, where there is no support from big companies that have this choice of where you're either 100% at work or you choose to be a mom. And I do hope that culture changes significantly as women grow and become board members and allow their cultures at those firms to change and adapt to allowing women to no longer have that sacrificial choice. Right. And I think it is tremendous that we sit here together as experienced women, and we're hoping to fight for that fight for every generation to come, behind us, to make sure that no one knows that there was that struggle. No one knows that in order to be a great mom, you had to sacrifice a great career. And obviously your career has prospered since then. But it is, I'm sure a story that no man has had to choose. Or very little men, I should say, have had to choose. Not to speak to every man out there. However, I do want to shine the light on that important, part of your story where you had that experience. And, as you said, the company didn't offer you a different choice. There was no path to come back to us in a year, right? And we'll give you your current role and you'll go and shine thereafter, or to do some sort of part-time role where you could, continue your journey. But, it shines the light on the step that you and I have talked about of aspiring to be on boards where you could shine the light on women's careers and to ensure that decisions made have women in mind of those decisions made, and future mothers as well. So I know you're in an industry that you mentioned was very, very kind of, boards and commercials and marketing techniques that have almost now resonated to something so different, right? We have this real-time streaming, TikToks, Instagram, you name it is out there. And the world has, in my eyes, transformed to real-time influencers, to almost streaming your life live as to what you're advertising or what you're wearing. How has that world shaped your current industry, and has it impacted your current role?
Well, I think actually it's only enhanced my role, because I think because it's so accessible now to reach consumers, um, a lot of companies approach it without any strategic thought. And even though the mediums have changed and the timing of when you reach and the level of engagement has changed, the principles have not.
Yeah.
You still need to be concerned about your consumer. You still need to understand your consumer. One thing that I find often with entrepreneurs and startups who have a great idea, you ask them, oh, well, who is this for? And their answer is, it's for everyone. Well, again, that is not going to be a successful business.
Yeah. No, and
They
I
have
think
to look at their product and determine, who is this for? Why is this something different and compelling to this consumer from what else is in the marketplace? And then what can I say about it to get them interested in trying it?
it's so true. I've heard so many people say exactly your same story, where they're like, it's for everybody. I'm like, well, I don't want to buy that, new swirl gadget that's meant for like attention deficit disorders. I'm like, I'm fine without it. I'm like, so why are you pitching it to me, right? And some of these, infomercials that I now call them, real time on Instagram, ads everywhere. I'm like, they really do have that. Like, I did not think about who my audience was, and I just blasted it to everybody. And I think it's a telling story of what company will succeed versus what company won't, like you mentioned. But I also think that there is this assumption, and I agree with you, and you said it, better than I will. Is many professionals think that it will replace them, especially the younger generation, right? And I say this to the people that are learning and in college now and in coming out of colleges, is there's definitely absolutely tasks that will be replaceable. They're the monkey see, monkey do task that a computer can do without having any type of perspective or any type of experience. But what they can't do is actually critical think and actually sell to that end consumer. So with that in mind, you constantly are hearing that AI is going to replace my role. And you and I are both in agreement that it won't. If you know what you're doing and you have the experience and the expertise, you will absolutely continue having your role in the career path that you've set up yourself. But, and I say this, but, you have to adapt to use AI. And I think it is strategic for you to ensure that people well in their career paths know what it is, how to use it, how to leverage it. Yeah. If you're looking at a project, you should be asking AI, what are the best suggestions for this that you may not have thought of? Or what is that plan that you think you should follow? But there's absolutely failures in AI. It will give you things that it has been, the inputs that it has learned, right? And it doesn't know the inputs of what consumers may want or what they should have. And that only comes from your own expertise in that industry. So if you could shine a little bit more of color, if I said, if you're a younger person and you think AI is going to replace you, what is your best lesson and your career advice to say, I don't think so?
I think it's twofold. One, I think that AI should be viewed as a tool to make you more productive, potentially a tool to review something, another set of eyes, something potentially you can bounce different versions off of. But ultimately, and especially for people who are starting out, they should be looking for positions and roles where they are actually going to be learning from somebody who is more seasoned in the industry. Because a computer is not going to teach them how to think and approach and be strategic. And if they just take a job where basically, as you said, monkey see, monkey do, they're not going to actually be adding value to what they're offering.
Yeah.
So the next job isn't going to come to them.
Yeah.
You constantly need to grow and constantly need to challenge yourself intellectually in what you pursue.
For sure. Now, I know you have a pedigree that is one of admiration. Princeton undergrad, MBA Wharton, and your career path has obviously been successful. But if you could share with us some of the career progressions and how you climbed the ladder to success, what would you say stands out to how you were able to, take one role into another and consistently climb higher to be able to find your success? And with the intention that obviously there may have been failures along the way, because not every transition is smooth sailing. But have there been lessons along the way where you're like, if there is some sort of intertwining component that I know made me successful, this is it?
I think, especially as someone who is self-employed, there is a big lesson that you are always selling yourself. You're not resting on your laurels. It's not, oh, I have an assignment today, so therefore I don't have to be thinking about the assignment tomorrow. You are always putting yourself forward. You need to vocalize to whomever you meet what you're doing, why you're the person to do what you're doing, and what you're looking for as the next step. Because you don't know where your next project's coming from, and you don't know who's going to offer it. And um, I think network is very important, and especially as someone who's self-employed. If you're at a company, the network within the company is very important, and looking for mentors and making sure that you are not only looking at someone two or three levels above you and how they got to where they are, but you're also making those connections. And it's every bit your success is how you communicate with others.
I cannot agree more. I think my goal this year is I've someone younger asked me for advice recently, and I said, if you approach networking and that it's 60% of your job, you have a defined goal. Have you done your job well, which is the 40%? And did you network more than you've done your job? Because at the end of the day, you and I both know we're all replaceable by someone younger, someone cheaper, someone whatever. And if your network is limited to only the company that you're working with, or working for, you're literally doing yourself disservice. Because if that company decides that your department is the next to go, you've just met the people at that company. Now, they may introduce you to others, but you failed your own network. You failed to open doors, open relationships for yourself within your industry or even outside your industry, where you may get that new prospect or new lead or new connection to open the next door for you. And I think the generation that does that really well is the generation that didn't get handouts, the generation that didn't get the people to, walk them out of a great internship into a next role. Now, I say that as an intern, myself being an intern at Goldman who got the next role at Goldman because I did my job well. But it also was one of the few times in the career path where positions like that were offered. And there are very few of them. So I was very lucky to be one of those people. But there were many people in my internship class that didn't get a full-time role. And they were said, sorry, better luck next time. So the career path of the networking environment is so important. For you have a consultancy business, which is, so much of that is networking. You do a great role, a great project for one business, and then the next business hears your name, or the next person hears your name, and they hire you because of that existing role. But it also precedes the fact that you have to do that job well. Right? It's like you can't just say, oh, I got the network, I got the connection, so I could just do whatever I want now. It's like you have to succeed at whatever task they gave you to make sure that they give you another task, or that they, give you another introduction to the next company that they're working with. So I think the networking, and would you agree with me that networking is almost as important as doing your job?
Yes, and also as you were talking, and you were saying about you have to do a good job, and you have to also be thinking, even if you're in an established role and you're doing well in that company, you don't know who you met yesterday, who you might need tomorrow. And I think this generation is, of younger people, is all about instant gratification.
Yeah.
So if they don't see the immediate connection or need of somebody, I think they make an introduction and then they let it go stale.
Yeah.
And I think the other lesson, and it's certainly something that I try to impart on my own kids, is that you need to keep your network warm. And even if you feel the person might not be useful, you never know. And whether it's reaching out at the holiday time just to say, hi, this is what I'm up to, or you see an article and I thought of you, here you go. You should always make warm connections with people.
I
And
agree.
one of my friends calls it drip. You drip. You keep dripping.
You keep chirping. I love that. I'm going to use that going forward. And it's I second that, but I also say you want it to be authentic, right? Because we all know when that person reaches out that they want something, right? And you go, God, here's this person again. I know they want something from me. And that's the exact opposite of what you want to do. You want to be as authentic as possible. And if that means during the holidays, or if that means during someone's birthday or someone's major milestone, go do it, right? Like, be that authentic person that says, hey, so I saw your posting. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you. Maybe we could grab a coffee, or hey, let me know if you're in town. I know through this forum of having my podcast, I have had so many opportunities for people who have reached out to me, and that behind the scenes, I have put them together with other podcast guests that I've had to say, you two are in the same industry, go connect. If I think maybe something works out between you, maybe it will, or maybe it won't, and you just became good friends through the grapevine. And I love the connections because I get nothing from it other than knowing that good people connected with good people. But who knows what that'll do in 5 years from now if that person says to me, oh, because of Kathy, I had this amazing opportunity, so I'm going to share in my karma, and Kathy gets X, Y, and Z. And I do not do anything with that intention. I have no idea what if anything will ever happen with that connection. But I do it because I know karma works. I've seen it in my life tenfold, maybe 100-fold. But two, authenticity matters. If someone says, hey, that person that you put me in touch with is amazing, and now I have a new friend for life or a new business connection for life, I high five myself because I go, amazing. I also, not to brag, but I also say I don't know shitty people. So I'm always happy that when good people meet good people and that they are able to network and help each other behind the scenes. I always say that, somehow my karma rubs off and that good people are always coming to me. And I always say that it's because good people know that I have the best intention in mind. I'm not doing it for the, hey, I'll introduce you to someone. I'm doing it because the person genuinely sees that I'm actually happy for their success. So I think with that in mind, I think everyone just kind of needs to take out, especially the younger generation, that what does it get me now? And what if anything am I going to use this person for? Because it really becomes a use and abuse kind of relationship, and it shouldn't be that. And I think it takes years of experience to realize some of these mistakes and failures. And I think the younger generation is going to learn that in possibly the very hard way when they lose their job or lose their connection, and that they're going to know that, oh, what I did didn't work so far. And they're going to have to do what you and I have done for many, many years and actually build those real connections and real experience of a network, and be able to leverage that for their next, venture or journey in life. So I wanted to ask, because we're obviously in January and we have a whole year ahead of us, is what is your career path for the next year?
Well, I have a lot of different directions. One thing that I've been focused on most recently is trying to earn an independent board of directors role at a privately held consumer focused company that has at least 50 million in revenue, and is in a growth stage. It's taken what I've been doing for the last 20 plus years, advising C suite executives on how to profitably grow their business, but really being more strategically aligned for the longer term with a company. So that's something that I have more recently been focused on. You had mentioned about my honor of being 50 women to watch for boards by 50-50 women on boards, but I've attended a lot of conferences, workshops, and networked.
Yeah.
To your point. So that's one thing that I'm focused on, and hoping that something will come to fruition within 2026. At the same time, I have to pay the bills. So more consulting work, which is revenue generating, is another area that needs my attention. It's actually to your point, very time consuming to network and expand your horizons. And so balancing priorities and recognizing, well, maybe I, need to also earn a little money.
Yeah.
And then also um, doing activities like today and just trying to be a thought leader and share my knowledge with others. And, whether that's through podcasts, workshops that I have done in the past year, panels. And then the last thing is, and you had mentioned, I recently co-founded an intentional community for consumer packaged goods and wellness founders, executives, investors, and affiliates called the Well Network. And so there's been a lot of focus on growing that. In 2 years, we've had over 65 in-person events in Los Angeles, New York, DC, and Chicago. And we've also had monthly webinars as well as monthly virtual meetups. And it's all about growing the industry and giving everyone together shared progression in whatever aspect they're looking for through mentorship, access, and just education.
I love that. And I think I've said this to you. I think the Well Network is something that in, a year or two will be everywhere. I think the goal when you bring people of like industry minds is that, inspiration and motivation just tenfolds all the time, because people are like, oh, I didn't know you did that. So let me help you do this thing that I know I do really well. Or, hey, whatever you did, it failed. And, I have the lessons why it did, and let me help you build better. And I think, especially in the industry, you learn quickly of who's great, who you could leverage very quickly. Then, like in my own industry, the network is very small. So when one person leaves or wants to leave the industry, there's 10 people that are like, oh, I heard someone is leaving. Let me take them before someone else takes them. Right. And it's a great opportunity for people to, network outside of the four walls of their own, firm, but also to learn from each other's lessons, to be able to say, you don't need these 10 things. You may need 2 of them to grow to that next stage. And I think, this is the whole reason why I did this podcast, is so no one's mistakes and failures actually get repeated, so that you can actually listen and get in contact with the person that is that industry expert and say, what worked for you? Because what I'm doing isn't growing as fast as I want it to grow. So what worked for you, and how do I, coordinate or work with you going forward to make sure that I'm better than I am today. So I can't wait for your 2026 successes to come true, because I know they will. And I know what you're doing will be so successful that, we'll have to get you back on the show to say, this is what 2026 did with me. And also the fact that I want to manifest you to have the board seat that you've been dreaming of, because your expertise is not something that can't just stay within, your consultancy. I think your X amount of years in the industry, but also the fact that, you came from such a traditional background, and you now have that perspective, which I always say, you can't buy perspective. You can't learn it unless you have the time you've put in. So, for the 25-year-old that thinks they know it all, perspective really does matter. So they need someone like you to be on their board, to be able to say, hold on, did you think about this? Or did you plan this 5 years out? Or is it just like, this is what's going to work, and because it's going to work, I say it's going to work, that's why it's going to work. And you're like, that's not a plan. That's not a strategic plan. And I think that matters. So someone like you and your years of expertise will shine on any board that you will be selected for. So last but not least, I ask this question of every guest, because I think it's a question that helps the younger generation. And the question is, if you were to go back to your 18-year-old self, what lesson do you think you would share with yourself that you would have appreciated learning earlier?
So I guess there's lessons and there's skills that um, I could have acquired better.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of skills, as the world has changed and become much more digital, I certainly kept up through my exposure, reading, working with agencies, etc. I wasn't as hands on throughout it, and I'm not a digital native, and I do see that the younger generation can work much more quickly on some tasks. That said, I'm at a stage in my career where I can hire and acquire that knowledge from somebody else. But it would have been more interesting perhaps if I had embraced it earlier on in my career. In terms of also lessons to my younger self, is don't let people tell you you can't have it all. And I've been very fortunate, and I say it all the time. And I have friends who are still working and toiling away. And I have friends who, once they had their first child, walked away from their careers. And neither is an ideal situation. The ones who walked away from the career and focused 100% on parenting, now their kids are older and their sense of purpose, unfortunately, has diminished. And it's much more difficult at this point, after being out of the career path for a long time, to get back in it. On the other hand, those who were more focused on their career, I think, missed out on some key milestones and engagements with their own family, and trying to find that balance, especially as you said, as a woman, is a lesson that I think is important. And I think it's something, fortunately, I did do that. So it's not something I regret, but it's something to younger people.
Yeah.
I would tell them, kind of be very considerate on every step that you take in your career and how it impacts the totality of your life.
I agree. And, with that, there's choices that we all make every day that will, shape our future in one way or another. But I also think that there is a lot more that firms can do that will enable anyone with that choice to, succeed, whether it's on a part-time basis or in a, some type of a come back and, rejoin the firm in a few years, to be able to shape and change the future of those decisions in a very positive manner, where it's not seen as I hired a woman, so in, X years she'll be gone. And it's the exact opposite. It's, I'm hiring someone who has now who can multitask better than most people, right? It's like my sister has 4 children, and I say to her, I don't know how you do it. And she goes, I don't think about it. I just do it. And I'm like, yeah, it's like Nike. You just do it. But you also, sacrifice along the way a lot of your own time and your own ambitions. And maybe those ambitions, continue later, but, it's nice when people take a look and give you the chance to come back to the table without having to kind of feel like you've missed out on a few years of that. So I second you, and I second your perspective, and I love that you're a mom and a woman who has accomplished so much. And I know your career is just, transforming along the way. And I can't wait for the 2027 updates of what you've done and how great your business has been. But I also look forward to the Well Network and what it's going to do alongside with you, and all the amazing opportunities that you're going to open doors for. And I look forward to also just being in touch and making sure that, that company or that board that's going to hear this is going to say, she sounds amazing. Let's do this. and be able to say, Brooke, because of the top lessons, we're going to give you this. And I'm going to be like, yes, it worked. So
there you go. Kathy, I love that.
I will be your cheerleader. And on that note, I thank you so much for your lessons, for your heartfelt message of success and inspiration. I want everyone to constantly be aware that lessons are constant. They're not at a point in time. We're constantly learning growth, failures, inspirations. And I always say, especially now, I say nothing happens on the couch. You have to get up and you have to do it. So on that note, Brooke, thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to our next catch up. I hope everyone likes and shares today's podcast. And we look forward to the next Top Lessons podcast with you all. So have a great day and talk to you soon.
Thank you.